we've got that. Okay. Roll call. I'm here. Maurice.
Aye.
Great. Helen. Hi. Great. Pat.
Yep.
Great. Stan
Here.
and Lynn.
Hello, I'm here.
Great. We have all aboard. And all right. I sent out a draft set of minutes and the meetings, and Jody posted them that same day. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from February 20th, 2024?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as stated from
Thanks,
last.
Stan. Do we have a second?
I will second the motion.
Great. Thanks, Maurice. All right. Roll call vote. I say yes. Maurice.
Yes.
Ellen. Was that a yes? Ellen?
Yes, that was a yes.
Okay, sorry. Looking at my screen and my paper is not working as easily. Pat, okay.
Yes.
Great. Stan
Yes.
and Lynn.
Yes.
Great. Item 3. Call to the audience. Jody, did we get any comments?
We did not receive any.
Okay. We'll move on to item 4, reviews. And the first one is 4A, SD 0324 dash 00024, 343 South Scott Avenue. And we've seen this before. It's changes, including changes to the wall, a new perimeter wall, 8 window replacements, and brick pavers. And I think, Kevin, you're here to walk us through it again. We saw you last in October.
I missed you all.
Yeah, I drove by today and it looks like the base coat down on the lower plinth is coming along and most of the windows. The 2 you're replacing look like they're already painted. Are those the ones that are rotten on the inside that are coming out, or?
They shouldn't be painted. Well, I hope they're not painted. They shouldn't be painted.
Okay.
Well,
I just whatever. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen and walk us through the presentation for your latest efforts?
Sure. It's PDF, and so I think I should be able to share my whole screen, and hopefully it displays all right. Please let me know if it doesn't. Is everyone able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So,
Very good.
great. A lot of this is repeated from the last presentation. So, John, feel free to let me know what to go over and what to skip. These slides are just a quick refresher on the building, built in 1908 as the Hotel Glenwood, converted to multifamily, then converted to office, and then most recently used by the Arizona Theater Company. We are converting the property to 6 high-end residential condos and bought it to make it look as historic as possible, both on the inside and the outside. And we hopefully aren't too far away from having some pretty cool interior photos as well to share eventually.
Okay, and refresh my exterior. At that time, you were just going to put back the wall that your contractor took down for construction.
Yep, exactly.
Today, the change of that.
So these are the original photos, and the most salient one is the east elevation, which we'll see again later in the presentation. So this is the west elevation on Scott Avenue. Beautiful building. It looks good from all angles. This is the southwest elevation. This is the south elevation on 14th Street. Southeast, and we start to see that that prior wall. And then the east elevation shows that wall again. So that will feature as one of our 3 proposed changes.
And currently it's chopped back to about where that joint is, right?
Exactly, about where that scoring line is. That's correct. And there's the northeast elevation. This is the last approved site plan from the 1988 plans, showing the U-shaped building. This is the aerial from, I think, when we bought it, showing the then current courtyard, excuse me. And then this is the development zone. And then I've got a number of photos of the properties within the development zone. Did you want me to run through those again?
I think we're pretty familiar with the area.
Okay, okay. And I do have some precedent photos that go back into the neighborhood to highlight neighboring properties or properties in the area.
Whatever
So
you think is relative to the presentation tonight.
Great. I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly. Sorry for the, rapid movement. I'll let everyone know when I'm done if they want to look away. All right. So this latest set of proposals relative to the historic district guidelines, there are no additions, windows and doors, no changes to the size, shape, and placement. Our intention is only to replace windows with like for like. There seems to be some feedback. I don't think it's from me, but I don't know. So windows and doors, there is a change, replacement of like for like, but no change to the openings and size and location. Masonry, there is some proposed masonry. It will have material and texture to match the original. There will be no exposed concrete block. There will be no new construction, no change in the chimneys, no change in the roofing, no change in the porches, no changes to the architectural detail on the building. We'll get into the wall design, the new entry area and wall design. Proposed partial demolition of the existing wall, which, as John has mentioned, has actually already happened, but technically that's demolition relative to the original condition. No change to mechanical equipment. Fences, we are proposing a modification to have a more historic fence along the alleyway with masonry construction. There's proposed to be an entryway that is off of the street, but outside of the courtyard. And so some minor landscaping is proposed. Relative to the parking, the location is not changing, but the size of that parking area and the material is proposed to change. Signs, we are still not proposing to change the sign at all. And I'll move forward. So the first proposed change is a new courtyard entry along the alley. The 1988 wall, which we've seen, is clearly out of step with the historic design. It's unlike the rest of the building elevations, it has no bas relief or other architectural features. It has a different and smaller sense of scale, and frankly presents a bland architectural boundary to the alley. The door can be identified as a 1980s style wrought iron pattern. And the wall, the existing or the original wall is not original, but the 1993 wall is a basic functional wall, but does nothing to complement or add to the design of the building. So let's see. Go back into the most recent history. So the first point of clarification is that this is a new wall. This is the 1988 approved plans from the building. And this note is very hard to read on the plans, but it does read as new 6-foot CMU wall stuccoed to match existing. So we do know that the wall did not exist prior to the 1988 plans. We don't know within the period of 1988 to about 1993 when exactly this wall was built. So this is a non-historic wall. And it doesn't really match the building. Looks like maybe they were painted on different schedules, but more significantly, it's just a very bland wall that doesn't match with the design. In contrast to the many bas-relief, horizontal running architectural features of the building itself. So these are a couple of views of the wall as it existed. So this is showing the pre-1988 wall plan from that same set of plans. And this is just, again, to provide some context for this property. The line of X's represents the original wood fence that was there prior to the 1988 built masonry wall. So if you look at the green, it's a little hard to see in this, and I apologize. That section represents the section of wall that we are keeping, that is currently standing today. And then, oops, sorry. And then the yellow line more or less indicates the path of the wall that we are proposing, which actually briefly coincides with the old wood fence and is a little bit more along that pattern than the current wall today. And I don't know if you can see this, but the current wall today goes out to this corner. So when they did it in 1988, they expanded the courtyard, and we're essentially bringing the courtyard back to its previous footprint. And we can obviously go back to any of these slides later. So our proposed plan first is the kind of the basis for this. This wall fronts, this elevation of the building fronts an alley, and it's not a great looking alley, but we believe the building should present consistently from all angles in a historic and aesthetically pleasing way. We think it will help the appearance of the alley. So our proposal is to redesign the courtyard wall to have a true entry that echoes the history and grandeur of the overall building, with brick capped columns and large historic doors. Our proposed courtyard footprint with the east-west wall moved north is closer to the original layout of the property prior to the 1988 new wall. So two big benefits of this, in addition to the style, we would provide a dedicated entry area that is separate from and does not overlap with the parking area. So that allows, instead of just having the parking area be the entry, we'll have a parking area and an entryway to the property. We would also like to provide 2 more parking spaces, both as a service to the residents for this project and to keep as much parking off street as possible. For instance, the All Saints project has been estimated to need 82 parking spaces. And I believe, I'm sure folks in this call are familiar, but that's the residential conversion that covers, I believe, 4 to 5 properties immediately south of this. So that would be an additional parking strain on the neighboring area, and we do not want to contribute to that.
I wouldn't bet on that one. That's kind of a non sequitur for your case, but I understand that.
Yeah.
I get extra parking for your residents.
And I think it's a very cool project. I do agree with you. I don't know how, I believe it's stalled out, and I don't know what its future looks like.
Neither do we.
Yeah. Maybe only the gods who control the interest rates will know if that project will be back online. So this is probably a little hard to see, but it basically pastes our proposed courtyard design onto an aerial of the property. So that's the existing wall. And now we're proposing to push that east-west running section of the wall a little north, more or less in line with where it was pre-1988, and then create a dedicated entry area. Oops, sorry. Dedicated entry area. So there's parking in the same area, and then folks can get out of their car and go into this really nice, like mini anti-courtyard area before getting into the courtyard itself. So a bigger version of that is on the left side of the screen where it says plan view. Now this is along the alley where it says, where it has the north area. So the parking would be to the left, and folks would enter on a brick paver path and then go through doors to get to the interior courtyard of the property. And so these doors are highlighted here on the plan view, and then you can see them on the front facing view. So we'd have some nice lanterns. The handles would not be like this at all, but they'd just be historic wooden doors. And really create kind of a grand entry into the courtyard. How does this look on the elevation view? Right now, again, it's a very bland wall, and that's going back. I guess that's the reason we could not get over the rest of this building and how beautiful it is and all the architectural features. And then we have this bland wall. It just kept on sticking out at us. And we thought, well, is there a way to do something more interesting? So this direct east elevation is obviously not a common view of the property because it's an alleyway. You have to be across these, across the street, across the alley with your back to the neighboring property. But you get a sense that the wall continues. This is flush with the east elevation of the existing building where it is there. And then you get a kind of a little bit of a peek into this courtyard entry. And then there's a wall that is flush with the east elevation of the north portion of the east elevation. And that is the existing wall. And that gets a column, a brick topped column to kind of give it some more architectural interest. In terms of the south elevation, we really don't see too much of this wall in either one, but what you do see in the current setup is that plain wall and then the 1980s style wrought iron door. And it just, yeah, it's kind of stands out. This is all set back from the south elevation, of course. And in the proposed elevation, you would actually see all the way to one of the arches directly, and that arch element would be visible. We looked around the neighborhood to get examples of precedent for more architectural walls and entryways. We really did not see any examples of the extremely plain block and stucco wall that we have currently, that the project had currently as of the 1980s or 90s. So here on the left, we see some similar elements with columns. On the right, we have columns bordering an entryway. On the left, we have the brick top over the stucco, which is across the street next to the Arizona Theater Company. To the right, we have different column styles. I think that's more of a Craftsman, but I could be wrong. Here we have more of the brick top element. Brick top on stucco is common, even if it's not reflected in the rest of the architecture of the building that the wall is in front of. These are more walls that have the columns and brick top and a bunch of different variations, but nowhere is there kind of the 90s style wrought iron and a plain stucco wall. So that's the first proposed change. John, should I keep going into the next proposed change and then we can come back to wherever folks want to?
Makes the most sense. Yep.
Okay. So now we're switching to a different proposed change. And this one is just kind of getting to the practical realities. We've done a lot of work to repair and partially rebuild our windows. We love the historic windows. We love the historic doors. We've probably spent the most time on the doors. But second would be on the windows. There are 8 original windows. Not all the windows are original to the building. There are 8 original windows that are more deteriorated and in much worse condition to the others. The reason probably doesn't surprise any of the Tucsonans on this call. It's the west elevation and the south elevations, which if you have windows that are flush to the building, receive the most direct sunlight. They're not shaded by porches or overhangs or anything else. So there are 2 original windows that are flush with the west facing elevation. There are 6 original windows that are flush with the south facing elevation. And just to give you a sense of the location, this is the west elevation, again, along Scott Avenue. So these are the southernmost windows on the south elevation. And actually, for some reason, these windows are in much better shape than the ones to the south. And I think it might be because you've got a mature tree that's right about here that has potentially shielded them. But for whatever reason, we've definitely been able to salvage those windows, and these ones are in significantly worse condition. On the south elevation, none of the windows have been spared. These 2 and then these 4 windows are in really rough shape.
Are the ones on the north addition that we're seeing off to the right, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't gone through all of those yet, but I was just in there today and I don't think we're gonna have a problem. Just because it's a little bit more setback maybe, but that's a great question.
You're here, so if there's gonna be more than these 8, we probably ought to know now, unless
No, we've
you'd have to come back for a minor review for a
yeah.
couple.
That's a great point, and I appreciate it. But these are the only windows we've inventoried that really need full replacement. But I appreciate the question. So this is along 14th Street, this south elevation. This is just to give you a sense. Now on the outside, they're all kind of painted. They've been as with many properties in the area, I'm sure, just sprayed with coat after paint, and it's a lot easier than getting into it. But since we're looking to make some of these windows operable, we've just got a level of deterioration that is really, really bad on the windows themselves. So these are interior views. The good news is we found we found something that is like for like. It's expensive, it's high end, it's the Pella Reserve Traditional is the brand. Wood construction, single pane glass. This is the interior view, so it shows the hardware. There won't be hardware visible from the exterior. And in fact, so this is, it's a little bit hard to see. It's not quite apples to apples. We tried to make it as apples to apples as possible. This is the original window, which had the old blue paint on it. This is the new window. And then this is the new window basically in the sill. We put it in front of the old window to try to give a sense. And so we were just really happy with the fact that it looked, not only is it wood construction and single pane, but looked the exact same.
So it's got some sort of OG-like effect like the originals. It's just a little simplified form because that's what's available.
I'm sorry, what did you say, OG?
It's the little kind of curved detail at the bottom of the upper window on either side.
Yep.
Kind of a little bolo. They're called OGs.
Oh, okay, cool. And I'm sorry, what was your comment?
It looks like the new proposed windows also have that detail, like your
They-
original.
Yeah, they actually don't, but we wanted to mock it up to see if we could make it match exactly, because the rest of the frame did match exactly.
Oh,
So what we've discovered is that these were added later. They were not truly original, but they're prevalent enough in the building that we wanted to make sure that we were able to replicate that.
okay. So you're gonna put fake OGs on to replicate the original.
Yes.
Okay.
Please. Don't tell anyone they're fake.
We haven't seen any manufacturers that still make them.
Yes, exactly. But we wanted to achieve, visually like for like, down to that level of detail. So that's the window replacement. And then finally, this kind of could go along just as well with the courtyard entry. The condition was basically rough pavement when we purchased the building now 3 years ago. Not necessarily historic, not necessarily not historic, certainly not unique, certainly not non-permeable at all. And definitely in line with the appearance of the alley, which is a project for another day. I have dreams about what we can do relative to the alley. But again, yeah, that's not really for the scope of this call. But what we were thinking was to try to really elevate the appearance, again, not only with the courtyard entry, but really elevate the appearance of the alleyway frontage. And so our proposal is to pave the parking area with brick that matches the original brick of the building as much as possible. We've actually exposed and kept exposed a lot of the brick on the interior. John had mentioned in the last presentation that the building was originally brick. And so exposed brick is a part of this building's history. It's been stuccoed over and painted over a million times, so we're not going to be able to expose the brick on the exterior, of course. But we thought it would be great to allude to that somehow, and again, do something different from just the standard asphalt, and really kind of create a distinct, rather than having this pockmarked alley kind of run into the building. We thought it would be nice to create a visual distinction between the two.
So what's currently on site is basically dirt with somewhat deteriorated bits of asphalt.
Yep. And yeah, not quite as bad as the photo. This photo of the alley was after after a lot of rain had kind of washed off some of the dirt, and so you can kind of see it's really, really bad. The current parking lot is not that bad, but it's dirt and rough asphalt. We would either pave it or do these brick pavers, and we'd much prefer to do the brick pavers for the appearance.
Are you gonna remove the asphalt that's there or put the pavers on top?
I think we have to remove the pavers that are there to get a new level. Yeah, I believe that's the way we'd have to do it.
And I hate to tell you that because that particular section looks like an alley, but it is a named avenue and it is technically an avenue, not an alley, even though it functions as an alley.
Really?
All of them in Armory Park are because they have addresses on them.
Oh my goodness. Do you know what this alley is named?
Russell,
Russell.
Russell Avenue.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so cool. We were talking about how we wished we could name it or something, but little did we know. Wow. Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, I don't want to, yeah, well, maybe we'll clean it up and then put some Russell signage on once we do that. But that's great to know. Thank you.
I did see you put your lower basement grade on that side, so thanks for doing that from the previous.
I did. Southwest Gas really wants, we've got gas running to the basement. It used to run up the build. Actually, you can see it in this image. You can see that gas line. We had that removed, but we have to run it into the basement now. And they wanted us to run it through the gate. Great. I don't know if you saw that, but I wanted to ask you about that. But I don't know if we can maybe talk about it after we get through these things or whatever you prefer.
That's kind of separate and it doesn't
Okay.
appear to be part of your package today. You might
Okay.
want to ask for a minor review for advice on site, but
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
it's
But
better
yeah.
than a hole in the brick.
Yeah, we've also cleaned up the other grates from the overspray over the years, and are obviously painting them newly painting them, so they're gonna all look a lot nicer, which we're excited about. So this, you'll have to all forgive me. I'm not an architect, and this is my basic rendering of kind of what we're thinking. And these are probably some more helpful images, but this crew all knows what this looks a lot redder and darker than our brick. Our brick is a lighter brick, so that's what we'd be seeking to replicate.
Lighter red, lighter.
Lighter red, yeah. Almost like more of a almost like a light or dusty terracotta is how I describe it.
Okay, and same for the caps for the proposed masonry wall.
Yep.
Do you plan
Yep.
on a herringbone or a flat bond? Like
Oh, in terms
standard?
of the pattern?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that we've gotten to that. I think we're probably open.
Well, you're showing this proposal that's showing a herringbone pattern, but
Right.
you kind of screwed up image, and the prior image shows them laterally.
Yes,
Yeah,
it does. You're right.
You have a preference.
You know, I think it'd be based off of installation. So I apologize. I should have clarified that.
Okay.
I liked this image because it was closer to our real brick color. And
Yes, it looks like royal photos. Anyway,
it's really painful to look at and be the creator of it. I can't be mad at whoever put this together.
don't worry about it. Is that about it for what you're proposing
Yes,
today?
yes, that's it. I just want to confirm that was the last slide.
Okay, I've got a couple questions, but I'm going to open it up to the board for discussion first. We'll do it alphabetically. Maurice, you're first.
Okay, first of all, I just want to congratulate you on your project. It looked really good.
Oh,
And
thank you.
as far as the windows, and you deserve it. As far as the windows, I have no problem. Your replacement seems to be real fine. Okay, they look good. They look just like the previous ones. For me, it's a green light, no problem. Um, as far as the parking in the back and those bricks, I think it looks very good too. I understand that the picture is not really what it's going to look like, but I get the idea, between this picture and the one that you showed of the brick pavers. I could visualize it, and the thing is going to look very good. As far as the wall itself, I think it's a good idea. I'm just a little curious though. Are you planning for some kind of details on top of the new wall, either bricks or something different?
Yes. So the goal would be to do 2 layers of bricks,
But, the,
as
but
poppers.
that's on top of the columns. What
Oh,
about the wall itself?
the plan was not to do anything on the wall, to have it be just the simple stucco. But I don't see why we wouldn't be open to doing brick on the wall, on the top of the wall.
It just a thought, but if you look at the top of the roof of the building itself, okay, it's a pretty ornate building, you know. So I don't think it would hurt, to put some kind of details on top of the wall itself, to continue the pattern, I think without, some kind of cap on top of the wall, it's going to look a little empty, a little
Mm.
skinny,
Yeah,
and again, this is a beautiful building, so you really want to try to match it as much as possible. So it's just a thought, But as far as the concept of the wall, the way you have it, I like it very much. I think it's a good idea. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a green light all along here.
well, thank you. And I do agree with you. And the goal is to better match the building. And so yeah, looking at it with fresh eyes, I think you're right. It would be nice to do something on the top of the wall.
I think it would add, a little extra. It would bring the building onto, Russell Avenue,
Mhm.
and complete, the whole project. I think it would look nice.
I agree. I agree.
But it's just a thought.
No, I think you're right, frankly. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Maurice. Helen,
No problem.
Yes, I agree that windows are no problem. I think the color of brick is something to think about. Partially because it could very well be sort of overwhelming if it's too bright. So I think, again, it's a question of balance. Actually, one of my concerns is the wall, because I think the one that you showed that was simpler, basically, that had um, the brick yes, was was less dramatic, I guess. What you wouldn't want is to have this wall compete with the building itself. And if you simplify the design simply to have a brick capping on the wall and perhaps a single brick capping column, it would be it would draw less attention to itself.
Mhm.
That would be my concern with that design, that it would be a competing element. And as you said, the building is such a feature in its own right that you wouldn't want something constructed that would draw more attention to it than to the building.
Absolutely. So, and and I'm hearing what you're saying is that if you have the brick topping on only the column, then it makes more of a statement about the column as opposed to being more of a uniform cap along the wall element, which kind of blends it together.
Right. I
Okay,
think,
I think that's right.
and again, the double, if you did a single brick coping on both, it
Hmm.
would, again, it wouldn't draw so much attention to itself.
Okay, so a single topper on the walls and the column and just have it. Yep, understood. I think I agree with you.
And as you mentioned, you don't think it's to be the entrance handles for the door.
Right.
Okay.
Anything
So,
else, Ellen?
yes,
Anything else?
no, that was it. The only other question is the angled wall, and whether that is compatible with neighborhood style or not. And again, it's a dramatic entrance, and I think the wall to compete with the building. That's it.
While we're on this slide, I will ask quickly, is it inset like that so that you can keep a soft handicapped accessible curve there to get back to the gates, but the wall itself, the outer ones are aligned with building features, and that's why you did the angled wall?
The the angle, I think, and I'm sorry, it's been a little bit since I was in these conversations. I think the angled wall was to just provide a little bit of room to do a little bit more room to do some potential landscaping. It allows these to be a greater length, and then also to do some landscaping on the inside triangle as well. So I think the goal was to have a little bit more of a sense of entry on the front end, and then provide some more landscaping space, and then create these landscaping pockets for elements on the interior. I'm not as familiar with the landscaping design, but I think that was the main intention.
Pat, comments?
Yeah, I think it's been a really well thought out and sensitive plan. On the replacement windows that I was looking at, on the bottom pane at the top, there, it's kind of nosing. It's on the both sides of the window. In the replacement window. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think that's the OGs that they're trying to replicate.
Okay, and that was on the original window?
We've found windows without OGs, and so it is our belief that they were added later as a stylistic element.
Okay,
To maybe they were added. I don't think we have enough confidence to say whether they were added to Windows or whether the Windows they started buying at a certain point had the OGs, whereas
sure.
others didn't.
OGs were common, but they are part of the side styles and were a common design feature when the building was built. So
Okay.
it's an
Mhm.
reason they wouldn't be added on, because Pella doesn't, and no manufacturer makes OGs now that are actual. They're usually add-ons. So are you matching the OGs on the existing original windows you're replacing?
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, that's great. I was just curious. No, I think it's a well thought out and sensitive plan, and congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Stan.
Yeah, generally, I would accept and recommend approval on the presentation, with the exception of the lights. I don't know that I've ever seen those types of lights hanging anywhere around or on the Glenwood. So where are we getting that style of light to put on there?
Yeah, this,
Does that appear anywhere else on the building?
no, I mean, the lighting that's currently on the building is just these modern bulb lights. So yeah, I don't think we have any lighting precedent. The idea was just kind of to have a um, kind of a warm glow that would illuminate the entry, but we haven't
I don't have any
specified any
objection to having
lights.
lights on there, and they'd have to be wall mounted, but I just,
Mhm.
those look a little bit too hokey to me. If
Mhm.
that's what they're going to look like with a swirled wrought iron and the
Right.
vacuum type shell at the light. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you could take a look at renovation lighting, for example, that would have potentially some other historically appropriate lights
Mhm.
that because we don't have any other lights hanging like that anywhere on the Glenwood, I would prefer to see something maybe a little less ostentatious.
Yes, with less flourish for the dramatic.
Yeah, it's a little bit too dramatic, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's a rather simple building in that sense, and that those lights are a little bit too dramatic, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you thinking more of a kind of a simplified craftsman style?
Well, I think anything that could be wall mounted, that doesn't have to be necessarily hung from the wall like those appear to be. You could
Right.
wall mounted sconces in a sense that are rather simple but provide a basic lighting.
Yeah. That I
I mean,
think.
I understand the lighting need for that. I don't know that I like the lighting on that left column that's right next to the wall. I think that's awfully tight against the wall, because you're going to have a wall coming out from that as well. It might seem a little tight on that. The two main columns, though, it makes a lot of sense, because as people
Yes.
coming in at night, they want some lighting. And I think that those two lights would probably be adequate for you to handle whatever light you need to get into the building or the courtyard.
Well, the designer is not here, so I get to say I keep on looking over my shoulder, but I don't have to. I agree with you. And I do think I do appreciate your comment about the kind of the swirly hanging mechanism, and yeah, I think that's valid.
Other than that, I have no objection to what and as presented.
Thanks.
Hey, Lynn, comments?
Hi, I really like the plans. I especially like along the south entrance where you're opening it up that one wall so that you can see the arched windows more clearly. I walk by there fairly frequently, and I like that. Along the back, I love the fact they are adding more parking for the residents of the building. I think that they will appreciate that, and I know that the neighborhood will appreciate that as well.
Yes.
And the bricks are a good idea. Just don't make them too uneven, because then women in heels cannot walk on them. That being said, I know that you kind of laughed at the door handles on your doors on this front view of the new entry wall and saying they were too ornate. So I think that that goes to what Stan was saying about the light fixtures are a bit ornate as well. So I think you guys are speaking the same language there.
Yes.
I took it kind of for granted that that hardware would change as well. So
Oh,
Yeah.
it has to change.
So
Lynn, do your-
matchy-matchy, but not too matchy-matchy.
right.
And then my only other concern is not anything to do with design and absolutely none of my business, but this is a very large area, your entryway into where we see the word north on this slide. And I'm just wondering how you're going to keep that nice and tidy and keep unwanted folks out of there.
Yeah,
And that's none of my business and none of our purview, but it is a concern.
it's absolutely a concern. You know, we've seen some folks in the alley occasionally, but the proximity to Tucson Police Department, I think, has been great. I think that's kind of our it's just really helpful. And we haven't had any issues. We think
Okay.
the lighting is crucial. And what I know that when I've talked to police officers in the past, they do like to have it areas that are easy to see into. And then we're going to try to figure out some sort of video doorbell system to mount
Okay.
somewhere hopefully out of sight, to track that as well. But yeah, it's definitely a
You've given
concern.
that thought. You've given everything a lot of thought. It's very obvious. So I think it's a great plan.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And yeah, now that you mentioned the doors again, it does strike me that that swirl is more or less the same shape on both the hanging of the lanterns and the door handle. Yeah, I think we're speaking the same design language and the same language in general.
That's me. I'm out.
Thank you.
Now it's my turn. Generally, wall height in Armory Park is supposed to be 6 feet. You've shown some precedent. I think the walls across the street from this project are 7 feet. How tall are the ones near the Temple of Music and Art along Scott?
Oh, those are pretty tall. You know what? That's a really good question. I should have measured that.
The reason I ask, zoning code is 6 feet per wall. Columns can be taller, of course. Then it depends upon the development zone, and we're allowed to waive the height. Building code is 7 feet. You're showing the new walls. Some of it's 6, some of it's 7. It looks like 6 over in the kind of the square L shape by the slate kitchen, and then it goes up to 7 as it moves to the gate, and then the gate is 7 feet 10 inches tall with nearly 9 foot tall gates with double caps. And again, on this illustration that's kind of wonky that you're using for illustrative purposes only, I hope.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
showing an inverted cap on the 2 columns on either side, and then the opposite type of cap on the smaller ones. But on the drawings, it shows them being bigger at the base, going up to a smaller top. Helen was talking about just a
Hi,
simple
how are you?
single cap all the way along.
Good. I think I just sent you a message.
Whoever that was, please mute. So what are the heights, and do you think the walls in your immediate district allow for the waiver of the taller height? Because the taller type wall will kind of block the view of a door. But I can see for privacy and other things and kind of to create an entrance, it also makes sense. Jody, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Because zoning code is 6 foot, building code is 7 feet, and they're doing a taller wall, and we do not know the heights of the other walls in the development zone. Do you think there is any problem with the heights as proposed?
I do not, but that's your prerogative if the board feels that there's an issue with having that tall of a height wall.
Well,
Not
and
necessarily, it's just we should establish that there are 7 foot walls in the district, and you should probably do that as kind of a side trip, because plans review will definitely ask you that
yes,
when you get there.
actually, John, can I just explain where I think we were coming from on the different wall heights?
Sure.
Because it is a little, it's kind of unique. So this wall is existing at 6 feet, and we figured as the wall that basically is along the east property line, the frontage wall to the rest of the world, it should stay at 6 feet, which is typically code, as you mentioned. We wanted the other wall to mirror that. And then we wanted to limit the higher walls only within the setback entry area. But then within that entry area, we wanted to have them bigger for the privacy within that area, and then for the kind of drama of the large doors. So that was just kind of the rationale. I just wanted to.
Okay. And then I have another question, and it's also for Jody. Since nobody's terribly happy with the lamps as shown or the hardware on the gate has shown, is that something that should be a minor review, or should they look into more historic options that they could show to plans review to approve or deny?
It's your prerogative. If you want to make it a minor review, just include that in your motion to have a minor review to review those. Because plans review will ask, has, Armory Park approved these?
Yeah, so should we just say we don't approve those, and we would like, unless plans review sees an alternate, we would
I would just keep it simple and just say that you would like to do a minor review of the lights and the door hardware.
and potentially the color of the brick.
Sure.
Is that not specified? Okay. I'm not too worried about the patterns or the other stuff. Our board, are we in generally agreement along Helen's suggestion that they just do a simple one-piece brick coping along the entire proposed wall to simplify it?
Yes,
Yes,
Raise?
Yes, and I'll go along with it, but I just wanted to mention the third light. Okay, the one on the single column. I think it's important to keep it because that's what lights up the parking area. So it has a function. It's just not only pretty, but yeah, as far as the wall, one row of bricks on top of the wall is fine. As long as it gets dressed up a little bit, I think that's the main point.
Okay, so generally for consensus, we're in agreement to approve the plans as presented, including the replacement of the windows, some version of brick pavers for the parking area for 6 spaces, and that the coping on the wall should be limited on both the posts and the wall to a single layer, and that the lights, the door hardware, gate hardware, and the brick color should come back for a minor review. Does that sound right?
yes.
Yes.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
I motion that happens. I'm not quite sure how to put that.
Okay, I'll write it out.
Thank you.
It appears we're all in agreement with that. Is there a second?
second,
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Dan got there first. Are you okay with that, Kevin?
Yes, happy to come back. Basically, if I understand correctly, I would bring specification of the lights and the door hardware and a more accurate plan showing the brick capping.
Just show us a brick, some sort of more historically appropriate lights and hardware of what you're planning. And if you get those through, PRS or showed them, since it was asked here,
Yep.
It's possible that we could just do a quickie on site with Taku without incurring additional cost for you.
Okay.
I would make a suggestion, Kevin, that you bring back 2, maybe 3 possible light selections so that, we don't have a problem if you only bring one.
Okay, yeah,
It's time to call the vote of the motion on the table, and that's the single capping of the brick, plans as presented, lights, hardware, and brick to be a minor review. All in favor? I say aye. Maurice,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Pat, Pat, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Aye.
Okay, great. Stan
Aye.
and Lynn.
Aye.
Great, passes 6-0. So hopefully that helps out. We know we know you're trying to do a great job. We're just trying to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's too.
no, I appreciate all of your support in general, but your feedback is really, really good. You can hopefully tell, I think you're bringing up really, really salient points. And I think, frankly, that the design is going to be better as a result of this meeting. So just appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
The other thing is, if you determine that any of the other windows on the north wing end up needing a couple of windows, you can roll that into a minor review as well.
Okay, great to know.
Fairly quick.
Great to know. My fingers, perhaps unwisely, my fingers are crossed for no dramatic, unpleasant surprises, which is never a safe bet when you're rehabilitating old buildings.
Well, there we go. You're familiar with the process, so you'll get ready for PRS
Yep.
based on this discussion, and good luck with it at that step. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Have a great evening. Bye.
Okay, and the screen needs to go back to Jody at this point. Okay, we move on to item 4B. This is a pre. It's called TPPRE -0324-00061 460 South 5th Avenue. And I understand that this property is in escrow, and the person who has an accepted contract would like to deal with the zoning violations that are held with the city and get some feedback from the board of what their options might be moving forward. And I see Dennis Canty's here. Anything else, Jody, before we move ahead?
This is a courtesy review. So while he can ask questions about the zoning issues, you cannot resolve those. He would have to come back for a formal review or a minor review to resolve those issues.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that for us. Okay.
And Dennis, I muted you because you were talking, but you probably want to unmute so you can speak. Or Dennis?
Yes, does that work?
There you are.
I can hear you.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me tonight. We got our signals a little bit crossed, so I just talked to Jody a few minutes ago, and she let me know that I was on tonight. So I'm delighted to be able to meet with you tonight. Thank you for your time. Just in a nutshell, my wife and I are relocating from the Pacific Northwest to Tucson. I've got a sister who lives in Tucson, been down there many a time. We were delighted to find this house available on the market, and we have an accepted offer. It is, however, a short sale, which means it all has to be reviewed by the bank that loaned the prior owners money on this. And so we're hopeful that that all gets handled within the next month or so. But in the meantime, we thought we'd initiate the conversation with you about the zoning violations on this property that occurred due to the actions of the prior owner, and also discuss some potential improvements to the property.
So do you want to share your screen with the kind of dizzy graphic we got, or do you have something more for us, or do you want
No,
to?
I think that'd be great. I'd ask
Please look
Jody
at
to do so if you don't mind, Jody.
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
I'm a bit of a troglodyte when it comes to these technologies, so. Yeah, and I'm sorry about the quality of this illustration. You see here what you're obviously looking at an aerial view of the property with the Fifth Avenue side to the right and 15th at the bottom, South Arizona Avenue on the left-hand side. This is a 1964 Rambler. I think technically speaking, it's a contributing non-historic home in the district. Let's see. It's a single story. It's got a 2-car garage behind the house and a shop building. It's a corner lot.
Is this the one that,
There you are. Yeah, so this is
this is the one that David Watkins liked?
so this actually shows the house before it was painted and before the bars on the windows were removed. And that's the gist of the zoning violation that was done without consultation with the advisory board. And so what we're attempting to do here is get after the fact approval for those changes to the structure. And then we are hoping to do a privacy wall along part of the house. You'll notice from this view that there are large plate glass windows that look directly into the living room. And we're trying to get a little bit more privacy on the 15th Street side. So, and you can see actually in this illustration, there's an existing chain link fence on the Fifth Avenue side that comes along 15th as well. And what we're intending to do is remove that chain link fence and then set a wall parallel to the front wall of the house at 4 feet tall. And then along the 15th Avenue side, build a 6 foot tall wall as shown with this arrow. And we are talking about a stuccoed concrete block wall, possibly with breeze block ornament inside of it. So I sent a couple of illustrations of breeze blocks and solid block walls that look pretty attractive. Once again, the house was built in 1964. It has some kind of classic ranch style, mid-century detail. And that's essentially what we're trying to pick up on with the new wall. So, questions?
Okay, your drawing shows that the new proposed wall is 6 feet everywhere, but you're now saying 4 feet in front for the courtyard?
4 feet in front, yes.
Okay, and you want to open up the front of the lot to the public in the street instead of keeping a fence line?
That's correct. My wife is a botanist and is pretty active on native plantings, and so she's excited about the idea of planting this out further.
Okay. The bars are gone. Are they still on site? Or are they?
There might be a couple behind the garage, but most are gone.
Okay. And you would like to propose to keep the paint as it is, or change the color, or?
Well, we're certainly amenable to changing the color. We looked into the prospect of getting it stripped from the house, and the impression I'm getting from talking with some experts on the matter is that it might do a lot more harm than good to try to get paint off of the adobe block. So our intention at the moment is not to repaint right away.
And you're thinking of replacing doors and windows, which are currently the original aluminum sliders?
That's correct. Yep. All of the windows and doors in the house are original mid-60s vintage, single pane. There really weren't many energy conservation options available at that point. So we're kind of hoping to upgrade all of the windows and doors in the house. We're not sure how much of it we can get to right off the bat. I would say also that there's an on-roof HVAC system, and we're investigating the possibility of replacing that. We haven't talked to an HVAC contractor yet. We're not certain that we can pull that off right away, but it's not the prettiest thing I've ever seen.
No, it has been there for a very long time.
Forever, as near as I can tell.
The other thing I will point out, because it's showing very clearly here, you'll notice that from the sliding portion, the two sliders on the masonry portion, the back area it's around the electrical box, and
yes,
it also shows another door and window. The prior owner blocked up on top of that boarding with masonry and removed the enclosed rear porch. And that's the way it is currently, correct?
that's absolutely correct.
All right. Several different things going on. This is just a courtesy review. It's not any resolution of anything. So I'm going to open it up to everybody for thoughts. Maurice. Maurice, you're muted.
Still muted. There we go.
Okay, Aaron. Okay, so there's a few issues here. This is a corner block, okay, in a very historic area. So right now we have a white and a black building that came out of nowhere, whereas the brick color has been on ever since this building was constructed.
But it's painted.
So I think the effort needs to be made to bring the original color back. I don't think repainting it the original color is going to do it. There has to be a way to, bring the original brick color without destroying the bricks. Okay, but that's, I would look into that. That's the first thing. Okay. As far as the bars on the windows, if they disappeared altogether, there's not much you can do about it. Okay, but I must point out that there had to be a reason why they were there. They weren't there just for aesthetic. Okay, there's large windows, and there's a whole population that will be looking at those windows and decided to break in. Okay, so there was a purpose for those windows, for those bars. So I would think very seriously about that. Okay, as far as the fence, I understand that your wife is a botanist, and she would be really interested in creating a front yard. However, if you look at the rest of the properties on the block, and every one of them has a front fence or a front wall, whether it's a brick or a plant wall, okay, which is lined up with the sidewalk. So it's going to look a little weird here if you don't have a fence that actually follows the sidewalk. as far as the 4 feet on the Fifth Avenue side, okay, I could see that. Okay. As far as the 6 feet on the 15th Street side, I cannot I cannot see that happen. Okay, it's gonna cover the building, and this is a showcase building. This is a 1964 original. Okay, you're dealing into a historic building, even though it's not 100 years old. But as far as mid-century construction, this is a classic. So I don't particularly care for the fence the way it looks now. Okay, but however, okay, it allows passers-by to see the architecture, and what was brought into building this, into this particular building. What was the architect's thought about it? And I think it's important to keep its originality. Another point, which I don't know if you're aware of it, but if you look at the picture on the screen and you look to the left of the picture, there's a small piece of land over there, which the previous owner had promised to the neighbor further west for exactly this is the piece I'm talking about, for the amount of $7,000, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know what the deal is with this, but I know that there's a couple of attempts at buying the properties that didn't go anywhere because the bank never approved the sale of that parcel to the neighbor next door. Okay. So I probably, if I were you, I would want to clear that up, make sure that you're getting the whole property, whichever it is. As far as the extension, slash terrace, to the right of the garage, it's a shame that it was taken down. Okay, it should really be the way it looks now. It was part of the building to start with, and again, it gives it homogeneity, which no longer exists. So it's a beautiful building. Okay, I think the price is right. Okay, are you going to need to bring it back to its original view? I think if you do that, it would actually increase the value of the building, to a very large extent. Because again, like I said, this is 1960s classic. Okay, this is what you see in architectural building magazines. So the previous owner was in a situation where he was not really controlling what was going on, and unfortunately, what you have now is the result of his troubles. Okay, so here's a chance to bring back, to rehab a building to its original beauty, and it's. I cannot see that building in black and white. Let's put it that way. Not after having seen it the way you see it on the picture now. Okay, it's again, like I say, you're dealing with an original. You want to bring it back. That's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. Let's move on. Helen.
Yes, I was just looking at the side view here. Yes, from here, from the corner, please. Thank you. And what you notice here on a couple of things. First thing is, even if you love native plants, those palm trees are something that should be retained. They are very typical from that period. The second thing is also to look at the hedge that you have along there. And I would have to look at that a little more closely. But I think that may also be a typical 60s feature to have the hedge. So I would take a look and see if you can find some historic photographs from that point. If you look further, you know, I know what Maurice was saying about the delineation of the yards along the street. But if you look further, what you see on the right side of the house there is a delineation with stones. And again, that is a very typical 60s landscape feature. I'm not sure what happened on the other side of the walk, but I think it's probably not 100% necessary to determine the edge with construction with wall or a fence. But if you maintain the row of, I don't know, they look like river rocks. I'm not quite sure what kind of rocks those are, but that sort of Zen approach to outlining things with rocks, again, is sort of a typical 60s feature. So I think in terms of that part of the yard, it would be really worthwhile taking a look at any historic pictures that you can find, because the landscape actually, what you see here is very much typical of the period and supports the character of the house. That was it.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
Pat, thoughts?
No, it looks like, you know, a reasonable, doable plan. I don't think I have anything to add to what's already been said.
Okay. Stan, thoughts?
Yeah, what is the actual material of the original structure, the exterior wall? You mentioned adobe, but I doubt seriously if it was adobe. I think it was slump block, wasn't it?
No, it's unstabilized, burnt adobe. It's the stuff that was available in the 60s still. It's kind of
Okay.
terracotta and it's
Well,
kind
then,
of soft material. So that I think that's raised the questions of what would happen to the structure if the paint was removed.
yeah,
If
I
it
think it's a
wasn't done
problem. I think it's a real problem to remove the paint now. I think it's going to cause more damage and potentially cause additional erosion in the future if you try to remove that paint from that burnt adobe, if in fact it was real burnt adobe. So I think that's a problem, and I don't know that there's anything we can address with that. As for the windows on the bars, it's obvious to me. I moved into the Armory Park area in the 70s, in the late 70s, and one of the reasons they had bars on the windows is because it was a red line district. It was a dangerous area. There was a lot of vandalism, there was a lot of prostitution, and there was a lot of lowriders that was causing a lot of problems in the neighborhood. Since then, that's essentially disappeared. So I have really less problems with the bars being removed from the windows. I think I'd actually prefer it. I think it looks better without them. As for the walls that's being suggested, I think what we need to do is see what the immediate surrounding areas got to say about walls that's used in the development area, in the development plan, the development area. If they can show similar conditions around the rest of the neighborhood that's got those types of walls, and I don't know that I would have an argument. But if there aren't any, then I would say then we should be concerned about that. As for the rooftop mechanical, I don't know that there's any other options. I mean, it's set back far enough. I don't know that I would see a real serious problem with it. And as the landscaping, I don't know. I mean, I don't have any objections to what's existing there now. My only concern is, since I'm new on the board, I have no idea what this recommendation is all about. I mean, it doesn't sound like we have a lot of power to do anything, do we?
this is a courtesy reviews to get feedback from the board of what they'd like to encourage the property owner to look into and not look into as they move forward.
So this courtesy review is simply then for them to come back with some more substantial plans to show us what they're intending to do.
Yeah, it's a pre to see what their options might be. Because I believe they're interested in some privatization of the outdoor space and replacement of windows and addressing the zoning violations.
Okay. Well, as for the replacement of the windows, I didn't touch on that. I don't know what the intent is here, but if the originals were, for example, the aluminum sliders or the aluminum sliding doors, I mean, that was appropriate for that particular style design and that particular period of construction. So I would probably have a tendency to say that, you know, to maintain consistency with the original design, as I would stay with the original type of windows and maybe make them double glazed instead of single glazed. But if it's a sliding glass door, it's a sliding glass door, unfortunately. I mean, I don't consider this building particularly cohesive with the design of the neighborhood. You know, obviously it's 60 in the 60s, and it is what it is. So we accept it, but you know, I don't know that I have much more to say.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, I agree with Stan on a lot of his comments. I am also very new on the board. And so to me, this property does not exactly fit into what my idea of Armory Park is, but I do agree that mid-century modern is an important aspect. If the building's been painted and it's burnt to Debbie, there's nothing, as far as I know, that you can do about that. So let sleeping dogs lie, make the best of it. As far as replacing windows and doors, if they are poorly constructed, 1960s, inefficient, single pane, vinyl, and aluminum, put better stuff in there and make it comfortable for the homeowner and more attractive for the neighborhood. In terms of privacy, I say make it work for you without creating a compound that shuts you off from the neighborhood. Invite the neighborhood in where you can, but keep your privacy so that you're comfortable living there. I think it's a great location. I would hope you would want to make this neighborhood your own. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Lynn. That's nice.
I'm going to ask Judy a couple questions first, and then I've got some comments. Jody, what is your thought on the paint and whether it will be more damaging to remove it or not?
There's no review for the paint. If they're just painting the surface, you have no review for it. So they're welcome to paint the surface as they want. Removing the paint would be detrimental. You can use a sandblasting. Kind of blasting is always going to damage the underlying brick and the mortar. And they could do a chemical peel, but the chemical peel isn't going to make it clean like it was. It'll still leave probably some remnants of the paint up there. So
from your viewpoint, repainting it more in kind of naturalistic colors might be more appropriate at this juncture for that situation.
I think that would be a compromise, yes.
I did not turn it in. Was it an anonymous turn in? Do you know any more about the zoning violation? And
oh, that's funny because I thought it was you.
I'll be upfront. I have never turned anybody in. I have encouraged people to turn themselves in.
In reading what they had written, it sounded like you. So I just assumed it was you. Oh,
nope. I do not I do not turn anybody in. I encourage people to turn themselves in so that they could like replace a heater unit in the future and that they're code compliant, but I've never turned anybody in. I have
It
no idea.
was,
who did.
yeah, it was an anonymous. I don't recall seeing a name. That's why I thought it was you, because I don't recall seeing a name on there.
No, I don't do that. I'm not a police agent for the city. Do you have any thoughts on the zoning violation and what is necessary for them to remediate it?
Really, it comes down to, and Dennis and I have talked about it, or I don't know, I've talked to a lot of people about this house. Really, it comes down to doing a minor review for the removal of the bars. Because that's what is really, that's what it comes down to. But they can roll that into windows if they want to do it later on when they're getting a permit to replace some of the windows and doors, they can roll that all in together. But that's something that, Dennis, you want to talk to code enforcement and loop them in, because they want to make sure
Okay.
that you're doing forward motion. If you're not doing forward motion, that's when they're going to start to cite you and they're going to issue fees.
I
Okay.
will say, Dennis, you may want to have the realtor go out and pull weeds, or you will get turned in by somebody moving forward, even though it's not yours.
But not John.
No, for whatever reason, the bank is really
Yeah.
reluctant to do anything on this house while it's still pending, and it really is frustrating because I understand it's beginning to look like kind of an eyesore.
Well, if you come down in the spring, maybe we can work something out and help you out a little bit on it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we'll plan on doing that.
Okay.
You can depend on that.
All right. My thoughts about this building are going to be based on code. It is listed on the National Register as a contributing non-historic house. And so best practices that we've observed over the many years is that it should keep the character of its age and style of original building moving forward, even if that's not typical standards for the neighborhood. And so it is a mid-century modern low-rise ranch with open accessible features set back in a yard. And a low courtyard wall is a potential thing. The 6-foot wall along the side, as long as it's behind the rear face of the wall, and you can show that there are some in your development zone, and you'll need to get the development zone parameters from Jody on this,
Okay.
could be considered. If I'm going to do the same thing about windows and doors. If they're all currently single glazing, but they are actually in really good shape because they're the original aluminums, you may want to look at options of glazing them on the inside or putting on storm windows or other options rather than replacing them with a modern product that doesn't keep the character or style of the building. Personally, I would suggest you probably keep some sort of fencing to the perimeter because that seems to be kind of the standard and the trend in the development zone generally, rather than having people wander through it, because the few yards in this immediate area that don't have fences are the ones that usually have break-ins, just for reference.
Up that corner.
Yeah, and I hope that as part of your purchase, you have hired a building inspector, because there are a number of those things. Because, for instance, that from the block original part, the original addition was actually frame, and it had T111 or wood siding on it, which was covered up with brick, and I'm not so sure if that was done appropriately, and you may have some hazards there. The other thing is, if you can find out what sort of paint was put on, that will help you with future ideas. I think probably repainting it is the best at this point, but you need to know what's on there to be able to not create new moisture problems for your unstabilized burnt adobe bricks underneath either. So
Right. Okay.
there's a whole
Good
bunch.
advice.
There's a whole bunch of different things there. When you get into town, and if it does close, I think you ought to look around the area, the immediate area, but also look at some of the other non-contributing 50s and 60s houses post 1945. The period of significance for Armory Park is up to 1860s to 1945. But
Yes.
there are some buildings like this, and there are other typical styles of this. You may want to do some reading on mid-century modern and look at things that will really complement the now 60-year-old historic, mid-century modern ranch house
Yes.
forward. So
Yep. Great idea.
HVAC is what it is. You can come up with other things. I will say the design guidelines say no white roofs. The original roof was light gray. It is now all white as well. It got a new solid white coating. So it's pretty glaring in full sunlight, that whole property at the moment. So you might want to look at various things in trying to make it more compatible to the area and retain its contributing non-historic status.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think it does. It gives me an idea. We're newcomers to the historic zone process as well. And so we just want to be good neighbors. And we want to make sure as we embark on a set of improvements on this property that we're doing the right thing. So I appreciate your thoughts on this. And we'll, as Jody suggests, go ahead and initiate a conversation with the code enforcement people about clearing up the code enforcement action. And as we get closer to doing whatever we do on doors, windows, fencing, etc., we'll be back to you.
If Jody thinks a minor review when you are in town and you do take possession of the property,
Yes.
that the zoning violations can be cleared through a minor review to address the paint and the bars, we can do that so that you're starting from scratch for a development report, but you may have to wait until all that's done. There really isn't that much you can do until you actually do own the property.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
The other thing is, I would recommend, and we've often done it before, when you start to develop plans in relationship with the house, you may want to do a courtesy review instead of a full review of your project so that you can get feedback and change things before you spend too much money on it moving forward. So that once you do turn in a formal package, you know that it's probably going to sit pretty well with the area and the advisory board groups.
Okay. All right. That sounds like good advice.
Yeah, we're trying to save you money so you don't spend a lot of time, effort, and resources doing things that won't go anywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay. Sounds
Anything
great.
Thanks so much for coming, Jody. Anything else for them?
No.
Thank you
Good.
for your time. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, we'll move on. Item 5, design guidelines, no report. Item 6, minor reviews. Anything coming up, Jody?
No.
I'm sorry, that was garbled. I didn't hear it.
No, because and then I said no.
Okay, so nothing coming, and there have not been any this month. Michael returns at the end of March.
Yes, hopefully at the end of March.
Okay. All right, call to the board, item 7. I'll run through it. Maurice, anything?
I want to thank Jody for the last meeting that we had, that refresher meeting that we had on the west side, that it was very institutional, and I think it was a good thing, to keep up to date, and we got to visit with some of the other advisory boards, which was also very good. So thank you, Jody. Outside of that,
Thank-
everything's good.
Thanks, Maurice. I appreciate those kind words.
Yeah, just a quickie follow-up. I assumed all of us made it, right? Jody?
Yeah, I made it.
There was, I think everybody made it.
Okay.
I'm trying
Um,
to remember. Yeah, I think
Jody?
everybody from Armory Park was there.
Okay, Jody did send me the PowerPoint. If anyone didn't attend or wants that, I'm happy to send it out over.
Everybody should have gotten that PowerPoint.
Okay, so you sent that to everybody. It's hard to tell from your.
Chicken, fried chicken.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Helen.
Yes, I just want to remind people again that the National Association of Preservation Commissions training will happen in the evening and on the 13th of April. And we made a special effort to make sure that the advisory boards are included in that. So more information should be coming shortly.
Okay, we have not received any notice that those are actually happening. They're coming up pretty soon. I assume this was discussed at the Historic Commission, which I didn't make last week. Jody, do you have any idea when we'll be notified and what's going on with the camp trainings for us?
Nope. That is something that I believe Terry and JJ Lamb are working on.
Okay, Helen, can you prod Terry into sending an email to all the advisory board members that we are also included in this potential training with the times and a way to sign up?
I think that is a very intelligent suggestion.
Okay, and if she doesn't talk to you, I'll try to reach her too. Because
I will follow up. We're actually going to have a couple of other meetings in the next, in fact, tomorrow we might have one. So I will reinforce the idea that it helps people know in advance when these things are happening.
I believe they are working on it, just so you know, but I don't know when they're going to send it out.
basically the training we got with Jody, Michael, and Corin is what the city produces for training so that we're familiar with the codes and other information that we can access from public records on the city website and other things. But the camp trainings are larger features of that concern outreach and how the public interacts with historic preservation. And so it's trends and other sorts of training. Am I correct, Helen?
Yes, well, I wish I could tell you off the top of my head exactly what the topics are. The topics were selected through a survey, and actually that survey was open to advisory boards as well as to commission members. And they took the 4 top topics that were requested. So it has a certain direct relationship to concerns in Tucson. And it should be very good. I mean, the National Association of Conservation Commissions is the organization, the national organization with information for commissions. So,
and I understand that this will be free for us.
Yes.
Okay. And if we can't make the times that get posted, we should be able to access it for 30 days online.
Right, exactly. And the only thing about being able to attend at those times is part of it is interactive. In other words, people can ask questions or follow up on things.
Okay, great. All right. Pat, anything?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Stan, anything for us?
Not really. The only thing I can tell you is that I will not be at the April or May meetings.
Okay, you won't be able to. We will have a hybrid option with a Zoom. We plan on having a live meeting, but would you be able to join online?
I doubt it. I'm gonna be in northern Spain, and probably not a lot of reception.
Okay. So we should not count on you for quorum.
Yeah, I don't see how I can possibly make it, even with a Zoom. I don't think it's gonna be available
Okay,
to me.
thanks for letting us know that. Lynn, anything?
Yes, so I've been attending a few of these meetings, and I really wanted to say that I appreciate how far you guys go to help homeowners and folks who are developing these properties get on the right path to make their visions work. It's not at all what I thought you all did. And now that I see that it is what you are did, I am even more proud to be part of this board. So kudos to you all. You all do great work, and I'm really happy to be part of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
That's it.
All right. Only quick update. There is a public meeting on the Midtown Reliability Report. There's essentially two routes. One goes up Euclid, 36 to Euclid, and up and over across Speedway to Vine, and then Vine up to Grant, or a re-proposal to go all the way up Keno Campbell, but not underground it in violation of city code, which is being litigated currently. But if you're interested, I don't expect anything. Again, nothing will be happening in Armory Park or the district, but if anyone wants to know about it, it's at the whatchamacallit Inn on Alvernon. If anyone's interested, I can give them the address. It's on the 28th from 6 to 8. I don't think that there's much moving forward. It looks like Tim Tomeyer who was acting director of planning for a little while, is going to be the new city manager. And I've met with him before, and he's a really level-headed person. So I'm kind of looking for someone to replace Ortega, who's been a great resource for a long time. And we'll see what happens to Ward 6. Hopefully someone with some historic preservation support will be taking his spot. I don't think there's anything else. Jody, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. Great. Then that moves to item 8, future agenda items. Michael's been working on some long-term zoning violations. Do you know if anything's coming forward for April that you can think of currently?
No, we haven't had those resubmitted.
Okay.
So they are continuing to be long-term.
Okay. I was able to get the equipment necessary to plug into Michael's machine, so hopefully we will be having a live meeting in April if there are cases. Otherwise, potentially May. Does that sound about right, Jody?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question. Do we always know just 1 week in advance if we're having a meeting or not?
That seems to be the case. That's the legal requirement, that we need to be notified a week in advance, and the agenda is supposed to be out, I don't know, several days before. The city
The
clerk.
agenda is, the legal requirement is 24 hours, but we as a
Whoa.
courtesy give you a week notice. As a courtesy, staff tries to give you a week notice. That's what we shoot for, so you have time to review the plans. But generally speaking, your meeting is scheduled regularly for the third Tuesday of the month. It's just should be on your calendars.
Yeah, I tried to get the city clerk to do that. they refused to change it from has needed because I don't know. The city clerk's office is very strange, but it used to be posted. Our regular meetings are the third Tuesday of every month at 6:30, either in person, hybrid, or by Zoom. So try to mark your calendars for the rest of the year. We know Stan was going to be out of the country again for a couple months, which is a lot less than his summer venture last year, but you know, it is what it is. So try to put those on your calendars so I'm not wondering if people are getting my heads up we're having something. Emails.
Okay, well, I will have 2 more election Tuesdays in April and November, so I'll let you know about those as they come up.
Okay, and hopefully they'll work out like they did tonight. Congratulations to Lynn. She actually did public service of manning the station today for the election.
I have done my civic duty for the week.
Keep us posted. Okay.
Okay, good night.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:22 p.m. Thank you all. Have a great night. And Jody, will you send me the recording?
Sure. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much,
Thank
everybody.
you.